The elevator doors opened, and there she was, his ex-wife, standing in our penthouse lobby. Before I could react, her hand struck my face so hard I stumbled backward. The security cameras caught everything. But my billionaire husband's response? It destroyed her life in ways she never saw coming. Before I reveal how one slap in an elevator lobby changed everything, smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications. What happens next will blow your mind, and you definitely don't want to miss the ending. Stay tuned, because I have something special to share with you. My name is Juliana, and 6 months ago, I thought I knew everything about the man I married. I was wrong. So completely, utterly wrong, that when the truth finally came out, it shattered not just my understanding of my husband, but everything I thought I knew about love, deception, and justice. Let me start from the beginning. I owned a small bookstore in Brooklyn. Nothing fancy, just a cozy little place where people came to escape the chaos of the city. The smell of old books and fresh coffee filled every corner, and honestly, I was happy with my simple life. Then Ryan Matthews walked through my door on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, and everything changed. You probably know the name. Ryan Matthews, the tech billionaire who built his empire from absolutely nothing. Forbes calls him one of the most innovative minds of our generation. But that day in my bookstore, he wasn't the powerful CEO everyone feared and respected. He was just a man looking for a book about philosophy, asking me genuine questions about Aristotle like my opinion actually mattered. We started talking, and hours passed like minutes. When he asked me out for coffee, I almost said no. What could a billionaire possibly want with someone like me? But something in his eyes told me he was lonely, despite all his success. So I said yes, and that coffee date turned into dinner, which turned into long walks through Central Park, which turned into the most beautiful love story I could have ever imagined. Ryan was different from what I expected. He was kind, thoughtful, and surprisingly down-to-earth for someone worth billions. But there was always this shadow that seemed to follow him. Whenever his phone rang with certain calls, his entire demeanor would change. He'd become distant, almost cold, and I could see pain flickering behind his eyes. When I asked about it, he'd always give me the same answer: just business complications, sweetheart. Nothing for you to worry about. But I knew it was more than that, especially when he mentioned her. Natasha, his ex-wife. The few times her name came up, Ryan's jaw would tighten and his voice would drop to barely above a whisper. All he ever told me was that their marriage had been complicated, that she was part of a life he was trying to move past, and that he hoped she would never try to contact him again. The way he said it made my skin crawl, like he was genuinely afraid of what might happen if she did. But love made me push those concerns aside. When Ryan proposed to me on the rooftop of his penthouse, with the entire city sparkling below us, I didn't think about mysterious ex-wives or complicated pasts. I only thought about how this incredible man had chosen me, Juliana from Brooklyn, to be his partner for life. Our wedding was small and intimate, just the way I wanted it. Ryan seemed relieved that I didn't want anything flashy or public. Looking back now, I understand why. After we married, he moved me into his penthouse on the Upper East Side, a stunning space that took up the entire top floor of one of Manhattan's most exclusive buildings. The penthouse was like something out of a magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered breathtaking views of the city, and every piece of furniture looked like it belonged in a museum. But Ryan made it feel like home by filling it with books from my old store and photos of us together. He even set up a reading nook by the window where I could curl up with tea and watch the world go by. The building itself was incredibly secure. Pete, the doorman, had been there for 15 years and knew every resident by name. The security team was professional but friendly, and Ryan had recently added extra measures that he claimed were just standard for someone in his position. I trusted him completely, so I never questioned why he suddenly seemed so concerned about our safety. For the first few months of our marriage, everything was perfect. Ryan would leave for work each morning with a kiss and return each evening eager to hear about my day. I was working on turning my love of books into a consulting business for small libraries, and he supported every dream I shared with him. I know all about you, Juliana, your little failing bookstore, your student loans, your mother's medical bills that you can barely afford. Did you really think Ryan wouldn't have you investigated? Did you think I wouldn't find out every pathetic detail of your insignificant little life? The grocery bag slipped from my hands, apples and vegetables scattering across the marble floor. She knew things about me that even Ryan didn't know, private struggles I'd never shared with anyone. "You're nothing," she hissed. "You're a temporary distraction for a man who's destined to be with someone worthy of his position, someone like me." That's when something inside me snapped. All the fear and humiliation transformed into anger. "Get out," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "Get out of my home right now." Her perfect face twisted into an ugly sneer. "Your home? This was my home first, you little thief." And then she struck me. The slap came so fast I didn't see it coming. Her hand connected with my cheek, with enough force to send me stumbling backward, my vision blurring from the impact. The sound echoed through the lobby like a gunshot, and for a moment, everything went completely silent. I pressed my hand to my burning cheek, tasting blood where my lip had been cut by my own teeth. Natasha stood over me, her chest heaving with rage, looking like some beautiful, terrible goddess of vengeance. "That," she said, her voice deadly quiet, "is what you get for taking what doesn't belong to you." I was still trying to process what had just happened when I heard the elevator ding behind me. The doors opened, and Ryan stepped out, his briefcase in one hand and his phone in the other. He took one look at the scene, me holding my bleeding lip, Natasha standing over me, groceries scattered everywhere, and his entire demeanor changed. I had never seen Ryan truly angry before. His face went completely white, then flushed deep red. His hands clenched into fists at his sides, and when he spoke, his voice was so cold it could have frozen fire. "Natasha." Just her name, but the way he said it carried years of fury and pain. She straightened up, suddenly looking less confident. "Hello, Ryan. I was just introducing myself to your little pet." "Get away from my wife," he said, stepping between us. "Right now." "Your wife?" Natasha laughed, but there was a hysterical edge to it now. "This child isn't your wife, Ryan. She's a gold-digging nobody who saw an opportunity and took it." Ryan pulled out his phone, and I thought he was going to call security. Instead, he scrolled through his contacts and pressed a number I'd never seen him call before. "Detective Morrison? It's Ryan Matthews. She's here. Yes, the penthouse. Bring the warrant." Natasha's face went white. "What are you talking about? What warrant?" Ryan looked at her with something that might have been pity if it weren't mixed with so much contempt. "Did you really think I wouldn't find out, Natasha? Did you really believe you were smart enough to steal from me for 3 years without consequences?" "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, but her voice was shaking now. "The embezzlement," Ryan said calmly. $4.7 million from our joint accounts and company funds. The fake marriage certificate you used to establish yourself as my legal wife for visa purposes while you were still married to Viktor Kozlov in Moscow. The insider trading using information you stole from my computer. Should I continue? I watched in shock as this powerful, beautiful woman began to crumble before my eyes. "You can't prove any of that," she whispered. Ryan pulled out his phone again and showed her the screen. "Actually, I can. See, while you were busy playing the perfect wife, I was working with the FBI to document every single crime you committed. Every forged document, every illegal transfer, every lie you told. It's all here, Natasha. Every bit of it." The elevator dinged again, and this time it wasn't just one person. 3 FBI agents stepped out, led by a tall woman with gray hair who looked like she'd seen everything twice. "Detective Morrison," Ryan said, his voice still deadly calm. "I'd like you to meet Natasha Kozlova, also known as Natasha Matthews, also known as the woman who just assaulted my wife in front of security cameras." Natasha looked around wildly, like a trapped animal. "This is insane. Ryan, you can't do this to me. We had something real." "What we had," Ryan said, "was you using a fake identity to steal from me while married to another man. What we had was 3 years of lies, theft and fraud. What we never had was a real marriage, because you were never legally free to marry anyone." Detective Morrison stepped forward with handcuffs. "Natasha Kozlova, you're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, bigamy, and assault. You have the right to remain silent." But then the strange things started happening. Flowers would be delivered to our penthouse with no card attached. Beautiful, expensive arrangements that made Ryan go pale when he saw them. Phone calls would come at odd hours, and when Ryan answered, he'd step onto the balcony where I couldn't hear the conversation. One night, I woke up to find him standing by the window, staring down at the street below. When I asked what was wrong, he pulled me close and said, "Promise me something, Juliana. Promise me you'll never go anywhere alone without telling me first, and if anything ever feels wrong, anything at all, you'll call me immediately." The intensity in his voice scared me, but I promised. I loved him, and if being extra careful would give him peace of mind, I was willing to do it. What I didn't realize was that he was trying to protect me from a storm that was already heading our way. It was a Thursday afternoon in October when everything fell apart. I had been at the market picking up groceries for dinner, something I'd done dozens of times before. Ryan was supposed to be in meetings all day, so I hadn't thought to call him. I was looking forward to surprising him with his favorite pasta dish when he got home. The elevator ride up to our floor was peaceful, just me and my bags full of fresh ingredients. I was actually humming to myself, thinking about how lucky I was to have found such happiness. The elevator dinged softly as it reached the penthouse level, and the doors slid open to reveal our private lobby. That's when I saw her. She was standing with her back to me, studying the artwork on our wall like she owned the place. Tall, elegant, with platinum blonde hair that fell in perfect waves down her back. She was wearing a cream-colored designer dress that probably cost more than I used to make in 6 months, and her posture radiated the kind of confidence that only comes from a lifetime of wealth and privilege. When she turned around, I understood immediately why Ryan had looked so haunted whenever her name came up. Natasha was absolutely stunning, with sharp cheekbones, piercing blue eyes, and the kind of beauty that made magazine covers. But there was something cold about her, something predatory in the way she smiled when she saw me. Well, she said, her voice carrying a slight accent that made her sound even more sophisticated. "You must be the little nobody who stole my life." I stood frozen in the elevator, my bags of groceries suddenly feeling impossibly heavy. This was Natasha, the ex-wife Ryan never wanted to talk about, standing in our home like she belonged there. I'm sorry, but you can't be here," I managed to say, stepping out of the elevator on shaking legs. "This is private property." She laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Oh, sweetheart, I have every right to be here. I was mistress of this penthouse long before you ever existed in Ryan's world." The way she said mistress made my skin crawl. There was ownership in her voice, possession, like she still considered Ryan her property. "Ryan isn't home," I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. "You should leave." "Good," she replied, stepping closer to me, "because I'm here to see you, not him. I wanted to meet the pathetic little bookworm who thinks she can play in our league." My hands were trembling now, but I forced myself to look her in the eye. "I don't know what you want, but you need to go. Now." "What I want," she said, circling me like a predator, "is to understand what Ryan possibly sees in someone so ordinary. I mean, look at you. Your hair is from a drugstore box, your clothes are off the clearance rack, and you carry yourself like you're apologizing for taking up space." Each word hit like a physical blow. She was saying things I'd worried about in my darkest moments, fears I'd shared with no one. "You want to know what I think?" she continued, her voice getting more vicious with each sentence. "I think you saw a lonely billionaire and decided to play the sweet, innocent girl until you could get your hands on his money. But here's the thing, little girl. I know Ryan better than you ever will, and this phase won't last. Soon he'll remember what real class looks like, what real beauty is, and you'll be nothing but an embarrassing memory." I wanted to run, to escape to the safety of our apartment, but she was standing between me and the door. "Ryan loves me," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Ryan loves the idea of you," she corrected. The fantasy of rescuing some poor little nobody and turning her into his princess. But fantasies don't last, sweetheart. Reality always wins in the end. She leaned in closer, and I could smell her expensive perfume mixed with something that seemed almost toxic. As they read her rights, Natasha kept looking at Ryan like she couldn't believe this was happening. "You planned this," she said. "You married her to get back at me." For the first time since he'd arrived, Ryan's expression softened. He reached for my hand, careful not to touch my injured cheek. "I married Juliana," he said, "because she's everything you never were. Honest, kind, genuine, and brave enough to love someone despite their complicated past." As they led Natasha away, she turned back one more time. "This isn't over, Ryan. I'll find a way to come back." "No," Detective Morrison said firmly, "you won't. With the evidence we have, you're looking at 15 to 20 years in federal prison. Plus, your visa fraud means you'll be deported after you serve your sentence." The elevator doors closed on Natasha's shocked face, and suddenly the penthouse lobby was quiet, except for the sound of my own ragged breathing. Ryan immediately turned to me, his hands gentle as he examined my injured cheek. "Are you okay? Do we need to go to the hospital?" I shook my head, still trying to process everything that had just happened. "Ryan, I don't understand. You were never really married to her." He sighed deeply, leading me to the couch in our living room. "Juliana, I should have told you everything from the beginning. I was just so afraid that if you knew how complicated my past was, you'd run away before giving us a chance." Over the next hour, he told me the whole story. How he'd met Natasha 5 years ago when she was supposedly a Russian refugee seeking asylum. How she'd seemed vulnerable and in need of protection. How their whirlwind romance had led to what he thought was marriage, only for him to discover later that she was already married to a Russian oligarch and using their relationship to steal from his company. "I couldn't prove it at first," he explained. "She was too smart, too careful, so I started working with the FBI, documenting everything, building a case. It took 3 years to gather enough evidence to guarantee a conviction." "But why didn't you tell me?" I asked. He took my hands in his and I could see tears in his eyes. "Because you're the first real thing that's happened to me in years, Juliana. You loved me for who I am, not what I have. I was terrified that if you knew I was still dealing with this nightmare, you'd think I was too damaged, too complicated to be worth the risk." I understood then why he'd been so protective, why he'd seemed scared sometimes. He wasn't afraid of Natasha hurting him. He was afraid of her hurting me. "The flowers, the phone calls," I said. "All part of her trying to intimidate me into dropping the investigation. She knew we were close to making arrests. And today? Today she finally crossed the line by coming here and putting her hands on you. That assault gave us everything we needed to take her down immediately." I looked at this man I'd married, really looked at him, and saw someone who had been carrying an enormous burden alone, rather than risk losing me. Someone who had been protecting not just himself, but me, from a dangerous criminal. "I love you," I said simply. "All of you, including your complicated past." The relief on his face was beautiful to see. "Even after all this?" "Especially after all this. You could have told me about Natasha any time, but you chose to protect me instead, and when she hurt me, you didn't hesitate to make sure she faced justice." That night, as we cleaned up the scattered groceries and talked about everything we'd both been keeping inside, I realized something important. The slap that had hurt so much in the moment had actually been a gift. It had finally forced all the truth into the light, and now we could move forward together without shadows from the past. 6 months later, Natasha was sentenced to 18 years in federal prison. Detective Morrison told us that our case had helped them uncover an entire network of similar frauds, and dozens of other victims had finally gotten justice too. Ryan and I are stronger than ever now. He's learned to trust me with his problems, and I've learned that sometimes the people we love carry burdens we can't see. We're planning to start a foundation to help other victims of financial fraud, turning our painful experience into something that can help others. Sometimes I still touch my cheek and remember that afternoon in our lobby, but instead of feeling angry or hurt, I feel grateful. That slap led to justice being served, truth being told, and a love that was already strong becoming absolutely unbreakable. The woman who hit me thought she was destroying my life. Instead, she gave me the greatest gift possible, the chance to see my husband defend our love without hesitation, and the knowledge that no matter what storms we face, we'll face them together. That slap stung, but it led to justice finally being served. If this story shocked you as much as it shocked me to live through it, please hit that like button and share this with someone who needs to know that good people will always have your back. Subscribe for more incredible true stories and tell me in the comments, have you ever discovered someone wasn't who they claimed to be? I read every single comment.